Hi, this is Arthan Armugam with student number 100933429 doing this video presentation for assignment 1 in ethics and leadership subject. So as part of my assignment, I'm discussing on the ethical dilemmas and their resolution uh, in my life, of 3 ethical dilemmas and their resolutions in my life that I have gone through. So the ethical decision making is a cornerstone of professional integrity, particularly in the workplace. I will majorly be discussing on the ethics in the workplace. So it involves navigating complex situations where competing interests, responsibilities, and values come into play. It explores my video explores 3 ethical dilemmas, encountering various professional settings, analyzing the circumstances, stakeholders, resolutions, and underlying psychological factors that influence the decision making. So let's enter into the first one. First one is misrepresentation of facts in business reporting. While I was working as an intern at a corporate firm, I discovered that my senior coworker of mine was intentionally representing business reports to make our client appear more profitable. The dilemma arose between reporting the issue, which could jeopardize my job and professional relationship, or remain silent and become complicit in unethical practices. Uh, because I was an intern, I was reluctant in coming forward, but let's see how I got over this issue. The stakeholders in this problem are myself, who's also responsible for the reporting because we were on the same team. My coworker, who was like the party one in this, you could say, in this circumstance, and the client, who was our client, like for who we were doing the reporting, and the company where I was working at. So the resolution I chose was to document the discrepancy and report it to my regional manager, who I was working under at that time. They conducted a de facto investigation, which it didn't lead to my coworker being fired, but we corrected it, and there was an internal meeting discussing about the shortcomings and how to prevent it in the future. These are referenced from the importance of trust and reputation in ethical business decision making from the chapter 1, page 22, and the prescriptive approaches to ethical decision making, which I will discuss in the coming thing from page 39 from chapter 2. Also the moral disengagement and ethical awareness from chapter 3 in page 86. The prescriptive approach in the realm of workplace ethics provides structured methodology for making ethical decisions. These approaches offer guidelines that help individuals navigate complex dilemmas, which also help me in navigating in this business setting. However, psychological factors such as fear of retaliation and social pressure can influence the application of these frameworks, which I underwent. So, the ethical the 8 steps that I used in this would likely be: recognize the ethical issue, where I noted the discrepancy of the report, gather relevant information. I confronted the coworker, identify possible solution. Because this was, out of my, I can't take any action. I really needed to report it due to company policy, evaluate the consequences, and consult the ethical guidelines and policies of the company, which is like clearly defined. So it's just report it and forget it, and make a decision based on all of the above, which in turn the best option was to report it and take responsibility for the decision. uh, so like what come may, I was ready to face it and reflect on the outcome. So the ethical approach I applied here would be categorized as a deontological ethic, which emphasizes duties and rules over consequences. Financial transparency is a fundamental duty in business, regardless of the outcome. The psychological factors in effect here would be the fear of retaliation and the social pressure, which could influence my decision to remain silent. However, ethical awareness and like moral development helped me uphold the integrity despite the risks. So the second dilemma here would be, I'm sorry, give me a minute. The second dilemma here is the workplace safety violation. So I am working, I'm doing a part-time job at a warehouse facility in one of the biggest e-commerce like site in the world. Yeah, it starts with an A. You could guess. I think you could guess by now. So I observed that my manager, like not all, like some were ignoring key safety protocols, including failing to provide PPEs to workers. Reporting this issue could create tension with the management, but ignoring it poses like serious risks to the employees' health and safety. So the stakeholders in this were myself as an employee, like I was responsible for the workplace safety, my fellow employees. I was also responsible, each employee is responsible for their own and the collective safety of others too. The management, who is at risk of risking a legal consequence if any violations are pertained, the company, so the company it in itself, so it kind of takes in all the repercussions that arises from there. The resolution I took up here was I reported the safety violation to my senior site operations manager. So he's like the boss of all bosses, and also the HR department. And I consulted with the safety committee to address the workplace concerns, and the company responded by implementing stricter safety measures and ensuring compliance with regulations, and having an added emphasis on telling managers that to not shorthand the staff with with a lack of PP and as such. So it all just majorly refers to the also like the from chapter 3 page 92, the fear of retaliation and its effects on decision making, in chapter 1 page 28, the importance of fairness in business ethics, and chapter 2 page 55, the role of ethical leadership in promoting workplace integrity. And the 8 steps to the decision making of the analysis is as follows: recognize the ethical issue where I observed the unsafe practice and potential risks to myself and my co-workers, and gather relevant information which was pretty evident, to be honest. It's a warehouse. Like if you look at somebody working, like it is pretty obvious that they don't have their PPE on, so there was not much of a gathering information here, and identify possible solutions. The possible solutions could definitely be reporting it to the senior management, and because it is out of my pay grade, so I can't deal with reprimanding my managers, and evaluate the consequences. The consequences would be like it could lead to improved safety measures and safer environment for employees, but I could also face resistance from management. But inaction could also result in accidents, and it happens time to time where they take even with the topmost security protocols in place, accidents happen. So if it is lax, it is pretty easy for things could go wrong. And consult ethical guidelines and policies. The company where I work, at least on paper, the ethical guidelines and policies for the safety of employees is pretty high. It is kind of non-negotiable on the safety part of the employees, but the implementation of it is questionable by some managers, so which, as we discussed above. But yeah, it is how it goes. Make a decision to formally report it was taken, and take responsibility for the decision. I was ready to face any pushback or defending, because there was also managers and senior management on my side, where they saw the merits of my argument, and they were pretty supportive in preventing any mm, like pushback from the managers that are concerned. And reflection on the outcome include assessing how effective the actions were in improving safety conditions, uh, which was actually conducted in a safety audit. And the ethical approach that played a role here is utilitarianism, which is like focusing on the greater good for the greatest number of preventing harm to employees. The psychological factors that go against the decision making could be fear of retaliation, which could have discouraged me from speaking up, but in a sense of responsibility and cognitive decision making, it motivated me to report the issue despite the risks. So the third dilemma would be personal loyalty versus honesty, in which the circumstances is a close friend confined to me about dishonestly claiming extra work hours for financial gain by tapping on and off the workplace in the same warehouse, where he would tap in early and tap off later, without working those hours, and would get the pay, which is kind of illegal, to be honest. And uh, to be honest, he was flexing about it to me, but I was never in favor of that. uh, it is fraud, and it is like jeopardizing companies finances. This is the circumstance. The stakeholders in this are myself, the friend, or in this case the co-worker, and the employer, the company which hires both of us. The resolution was that I spoke to my friend privately, highlighting the ethical and legal risks of their actions. Eventually, they corrected their timesheets and committed to ethical behavior moving forward. It took some, you know, convincing days to be to get him to do that. But yeah, so it also has legal repercussions. So it's best not to get involved in fraud in such in the beginning of our careers, to be honest. This is also a reference from managing business ethics from chapter 3, page 95, where unconscious bias and ethical decision making plays a role. And the role of virtue ethics in ethical dilemmas from chapter 2, page 42. And the importance of values in ethical business practices from chapter 1, page 30. Also the cognitive moral development and ethical reasoning from chapter 3, page 77. The 8 steps that helped me resolve this issue, which I track back, would be recognize the ethical issue, which is becoming aware that my friend is engaging in unethical behavior, like claiming extra work hours, which creates conflict between friendship and professional integrity. Gather relevant information. His own admission is the information that I went with, and identify possible solutions. It is there are as I said, there are better ways to address the issue rather than reporting it, because if you correct it by yourself, it's kind of no say no foul. So if I correct my time charts, time cards, uh, like it's not a problem. So I convinced him to do it, not to report it to the HR. So that was a big advantage. And evaluate the consequences. Choosing to remain silent could lead to is abetting financial fraud, affecting the employer negatively. uh, Consulting the legal guidelines and policies of the company, which is kind of clear. like uh, it's pretty obvious, don't do fraud. And I made the decision to persuade him. Of course, if he would have not agreed to uh, mm, correct his time cards, I would have gone to the HR anonymously. We also have the anonymity, we can just so that there need not to be any repercussions, we can report things anonymously. I would have gone that way, but thankfully it got resolved and it did escalate to that situation. And take responsibility for the decision, being accountable for the choice made, whether it strains or strengthens the relationship. It definitely didn't strengthen it, to be honest, but I stand by my decision. And by reflecting on the outcome, I think because it is a pretty tightly knit, workplace, even one person being slacking on the ethical part a little bit would set a really bad example, and it's just a slippery slope from there. Like whoever follows us, a newly hired people could look at us and be like, oh, like I think I could slack off, and like what am I losing? So it's kind of pretty bad. So like it's better to not do that. So the ethical approach, as said earlier, was I think it is the virtue ethic, which is prioritizing honesty and integrity over personal gain. The psychological factors affecting the cognitive, psychological factors affecting the decision making in this ethical thing is cognitive moral development, which influence my decision to act ethically despite the emotional difficulty of potentially losing a friendship, which is honestly because it amounted to, let's say, a pretty clear black or white problem, like is it fraud or not, that's it. There is no gray area involved. So I think cognitive moral development would best suit it. So yeah, and for conclusion, these dilemmas like demonstrate complexity of ethical decision making in various workplace contexts. By applying ethical framework and understanding psychological influences, we can make informed, responsible choices in challenging situations. Ethical decision making requires balancing like principles, social values like ethics, and emphasized in the managing business ethics chapter. And moreover, organizations should foster an ethical culture by implementing robust policies, training programs, and whistleblower protections to encourage ethical behavior. And by continually reflecting on ethical challenges, professionals can build integrity and contribute to more like ethical business environment. In conclusion, ethical dilemmas demand not only knowledge of ethical frameworks but also commitment to personal values and courage to act with integrity, even in the face of adversity. I think that will be all. I think it has satisfied my need for my assignment one. And thank you so much, and have a good day, Professor. Thank you.